something to play with, go and find yourself a toy. Baby, my time is too expensive, and I'm not a little boy. If you are serious, don't play with my heart, it makes me furious.
Okay, everyone, how's everybody doing? Thank you for joining. We'll let folks kind of trickle in as we kind of get started for the day. So thank you everybody for joining and signing up for this presentation. My name is Christopher Forden. I'm the project director at Santa Ana Active Streets, and doing a presentation today about why Santa Ana streets are the way they are. It's going to be a conversation about transportation. We're going to be talking a little bit about land use, and yeah. So we'll definitely. I will also say that this is, as much as we talk about, this is very much a kind of primer into this kind of conversation. So there's honestly a lot more information we can share in the future, but I would say that this is just definitely a starting point of how much a starting point for this kind of conversation for anybody that wants to learn of why Santa Ana streets are. So we'll definitely share more information after the presentation and other ways to get involved. My colleague Dorian is going to be providing interpretation if it's needed. We didn't get any RSVPs for interpretation for today for Spanish. So if you do need interpretation, please put it in your in the chat box. We actually ended up disabling the audio for today just because want to just kind of you know, bombing and all those things. So if you can actually if you want to participate in the conversation, please do so in the chat that's located at the bottom. And if you need interpretation, please let us know. Para alguien que está escuchando ahorita, si necesita interpretación, por favor, díganos aquí en el chat, y también y podemos poner el sistema para hacer la interpretación. But yeah, so if anybody needs it, just mention the chat and we'll get it set up for you. Okay, so just a real quick housekeeping. This program is actually a part of a program we are doing as part of the city of Santa Ana. This program is funded. We are contracted actually to do educational and encouragement activities for the city of Santa Ana, and it's also funded through a grant, a state grant through the California Office of Traffic Safety. And so that is why we are able to bring this presentation to folks today. So who is Santa Ana Active Streets, for anybody that's listening up there? We are a coalition of groups, nonprofit organizations, and residents that organize around active transportation. Active transportation is biking, walking, skating, anything that is any kind of mobility that is non-motorized. So not using a car. And we have a lot of Santa Ana residents and community members that move in this way. So we offer bike rides, we do presentations like these, offer bike classes, and all to try to create a culture and a safer environment for moving around, but while walking, biking, or rolling. So quick icebreaker before we get started. If you could put your name in the chat and include where you live and answer the question, what's something unique about where you live? So we can take 2 minutes. Folks are able to put your comment in the chat. Hi, Topher, welcome. So the question that we are doing right now is if you could put your name in the chat, where you live, and what's something unique about where you live. Vendors and murals. Dorian, Santana, something unique is what we have, that we have lots of street vendors and murals in my neighborhood. Janelle, Herringer Park, Santana, bungalow neighborhood. Awesome, very cool. Abel Chavez, live in Santana by SAC, and a unique thing about my area is, yes, murals. Definitely a lot of public art, for sure. Okay, you can keep putting in the chat and we will continue on, but please feel free to add to the conversation. Woodland neighborhood, awesome, Dorian. So we're gonna start off a little bit with a pop quiz. Does anybody know where this street is? This is, we're gonna be doing some giveaways. This is not part of the giveaway process, but I wish it would be. But just wanted to see, test, where is this? So does anybody know where this is? Jasmine, you're right. 17th and Grand. Got it. Okay, next one. How about here? There's a little clue. There's a couple clues you can probably pick out. Which one is it, Abel? Norm, 17th Main. Okay, Janelle, you got it. Yep, Jasmine, 17th Main. Near Norms, exactly. That Norms gave it away. What about this street? th Tustin. Okay, this is on 17th. This is actually on 17th. So the 17th was right, Jasmine, but it's not Tustin. It's Centro Center and 17th. It's like near a shopping center. Oh, Home Place Center. There you go. And what is this street? Anybody take a guess which street this is? The last one. Oh, the last one, yeah. Mm-hmm. Near Laguna Hills Nursery, Bristol. Okay. Tustin, or 17th again, Janelle saying. I feel like Canes is around here too. Okay, so this is actually Tustin. So good job, Jasmine, again. But what do you notice about the photos? Janelle, you actually kind of mentioned it right there. There's no landmarks for some of these places. Main Street did have a landmark in Norms. Yeah, what did folks actually see in these photos, and what did you notice? So something about these photos is, you know, they're wide. Are there people on the streets? Is there a lot of tree coverage? Seems a little on the hot side. Definitely a lot of pavement. No bike lanes. Low buildings. Wide sidewalks though. So now where is this? What do you see? I think this one's the easiest one. Fourth Street Government Building, Main, 4th and Main, yeah. And where is this? How about here? Any guesses? This one's Cypress headed to downtown. How about this street? Any guesses? This one's Flower Street. Cypress, Flower, yeah. It is Flower. It is Flower next to Santa Ana High School. And where's this street at? Anybody remember this amazing event that happened in Santa Ana? This was Main Street during Sundays on Main Open Street. It is kind of like a ciclovia. So almost exactly, you got it, Janelle. Now, which do you feel, from the comparison, we had some roads that were on the really wide side, and then some roads that were on the really, had a little bit more tree coverage, and we had some bike lanes, a lot smaller streets. So in terms of the photos, like the photo on the left and the photo on the right, which do you feel would be safer and more comfortable to walk or ride a bike? If you can put in the chat, which would you feel, Because we definitely have in the city two very different types. The city is very walkable, but also a lot of streets are also very car oriented. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the two types that we have in the city. And so our story begins as we get started. Our story begins really wanting to kind of hark back to the roots of Santa Ana. Orange County evolved from its rural background, from like a community, specifically Orange County. It used to be a population of about 200,000 in the 1950s, and it blossomed into a metropolis really in 2010. The population is now 3 million. So within about 60 years, it's ballooned more than almost close to 3 million. Lima beans, asparagus, and strawberries. Lots of agriculture. Construction, displaced a few people because so this was actually the roadways that were actually that Santa Ana actually had. It was in most road widenings and free highway widenings, like in Los Angeles, a lot of roads actually widened because there was already communities there, so there was a lot of displacement. So really, there was actually more of a clean slate that was actually present in the community. So there wasn't as much displacement, but there was displacement of the agricultural community for sure. But this is really where we started. And so because we kind of started from that space, the first kind of iterations of roadways were really much smaller. So if anybody's seen these photos, on the left side is actually the 5 freeway at Bristol, near Bristol. And then the right photo, can anybody guess what street that is? That is actually the 5 freeway as well too. But that street right there, we were talking about it in the quiz. That's actually 17th Street. So if you look at 17th Street now, it's much wider. And yeah, that's actually where you turn. That's actually, I think, where you turn on so you can actually head to the water tower, really close to it, get a really good view of it. But the streets were, designed, and the highways were designed on a very low scale from the very beginning. But today, it looks more like this, and the thing is, we kind of live in this environment where, when we're born into the community, we just kind of feel like this is the norm. But it really didn't start like that. It really did have some other roots. But the growth and the overall growth of our highways and our roads was not something that just happened overnight. It was something that was planned, and it's actually been sometimes even taxpayer funded as well too. So as you saw in some of the previous photos, we went from farms, agriculture to freeways and roads with a couple of lanes of traffic. So freeways and to now freeways that are really as wide as soccer fields. And so, like I said, that didn't happen by mistake. So for example, fulfilling a goal that doesn't just happen. There's often steps and plans that need to be made to get there. And our roads are the same. And there are people that work to make it the way it is. And they create plans that include things like how much parking we put on our roads and also how wide we make our roads. So, in Orange County in the 1950s, 60s, people created this plan that you're seeing, the Master Plan of Arterial Highways. It's a document that is not really heard of very often, but this was really the blueprint of how we have Bristol, how we have 17th, how we have Grand Avenue, how it is today. If they were small streets, that didn't matter if they were small at one point. This plan said that they would make them larger, as population grew. And the main impetus was, to let people drive faster on them. And if you're going faster, what does that usually mean? Maybe less traffic. You can get home faster. Maybe you can get to work faster. And maybe more people can move faster too, especially if they're driving a car. But getting through traffic, getting through traffic sounds nice, right? But there are a lot of problems that can happen when we try to make our roads only about moving cars faster. So this is a very sobering example of, and once again, we're doing a little history lesson, but this is a very sobering example of this at play, of how the Master Plan of Arterial Highway has, created an environment, helped to create an environment that we have today. This is a time lapse of Bristol Street. On the left was prior to the widening. So if you look on the left side, you can see that there's about 2 lanes of traffic on both sides, a center turn lane, and many homes and businesses. But with the document like a Master Plan of Arterial Highways, they were saying there's these things called arterial roads. And these are basically streets that are identified as key routes where people travel. And the master plan said that they needed to be wider to allow faster movement of people as the population grew and development expanded. And so about the 80s and 90s, a sales tax measure called Measure M was approved by Orange County voters, awarded money to cities who didn't have a lot of funds to actually do a lot of their road repairs. But Master Plan of Arterial Highways combined with Measure M sales tax basically said that if you want our sales tax money to repair your roads, you needed to follow the MPAH, and then they would get the money. So there's really not much money to actually widen the roads, but now a tax initiative actually helped to start repairing roads, but on the condition that they widen their capacity. So, what happens when there's no space to widen though? That's the other thing. Especially in older cities like Santa Ana that lack space, they must clear homes through eminent domain, a process where the government buys out and forces out a property owner because the land is needed for public use or a business. And this is the story of Bristol. In 1992, the LA Times reported that 3.9-mile stretch of Bristol between Warner and Memory Lane, where the project is located, more than 100 businesses and 236 units will be relocated. But really what that meant was being displaced. And during just half of the life of this project, 173 residents were displaced. That's not considering the other half of the life of the project. And we're going to take a closer look at what's happening on the street. But this is the reality of what Bristol used to look like and Bristol is today. If you look further to the right, it's less businesses, more vacant lots, and a wider road. So the street on Bristol actually has a posted speed limit of about 40 to 45 miles per hour. But regular times pre-COVID, and actually even during COVID, cars go much faster than the listed speed limit, go 50, 60 miles per hour. Sidewalks along Bristol are also very wide, which actually end up being used by bicyclists as well because the sidewalk is that wide. But there is an issue with how inviting they are to be places to actually walk and commute, mostly because it's tattered with vacant lots. You have to cross large parking lots to get to a business. And even crossing streets is a challenge because crosswalks are far from each other, and crossing the street at all has you crossing up to 10 lanes of traffic at intersections. And like we already mentioned about the many residents and businesses that were displaced, what replaced them? Some businesses replaced them, some markets that you could see on Bristol, but still to this day, roughly 90 city-owned vacant lots remain after years after they were demolished, with the majority of them being on Bristol. But there's some hope. The city is in dire need of park and open space, and with the work by groups like Thrive Santa Ana, residents are reimagining these lots as future parks, housing, and even mercaditos. And this just in kind of wanting to get that street view. This is what Bristol used to look like as well. On the left side, we saw the aerial view, but this was Bristol back in the day. It was 2 lanes of traffic on both sides. There were businesses, and also even on the right side is actually an image of Santa Ana College as it was kind of barely forming. And if you look at the roadway, it's a lot smaller, so we didn't actually, we didn't see Missy Me and Ed's. Oh yeah, pizza parlor. Oh my gosh, that's a great, thank you for sharing that, the streets were a lot smaller. We didn't start off from just a wide road. It happened over time. And, like I said, these plans, help to further these windings of roads. So, imagine crossing Bristol, at this point, would you feel easier to cross this kind of street, Bristol back then, than you would try to today? So, now we're going to talk about a very popular topic in Santa Ana. And that's parking. We hear from many people that there's no parking in the city. And yes, it's easy to find parking a lot of times. It isn't easy to find parking a lot of times, but that isn't the case at the Home Depot parking lot or on Edinger or even Main Place. You just might have to walk a little bit to find the spot. So we'd like to share this video about how, municipalities decide and governments decide how we manage parking in cities and how it affects so many things in our life, including how we travel. And so I'll be pausing as we go along.
And we've come up with a design that puts 12,000 people in one building.
4 months before he died in 2011, Steve Jobs made his final public appearance, pitching Apple's new campus, which opened this year. Central to his vision was turning existing parking lots into a green landscape.
The overall feeling of the place is going to be a zillion times better than it is now with all the asphalt. So we'd like to plant a lot of trees, including some apricot orchards.
But Jobs didn't mention that the new parking structure on campus would have more floor space than the office building. That's because it wasn't Apple's plan. The decision came from the city of Cupertino, which demanded 11,000 parking spots for the campus. But Cupertino is hardly unique. It's estimated that in America, there are 8 parking spots for every car, covering up to 30% of our cities and collectively taking up about as much space as the state of West Virginia.
So real quick, take a pause to kind of recap a few things that was caught there. So the Apple campus in that project was going to put a lot of trees, but they would install 11,000 parking spaces. Did they want to? Well, not really. They were forced to by Cupertino. The city, they demanded those many spots for the campus. And then the other thing, in the US, 8 parking spots for every car cover up to 30% of our cities. 30% of our cities is made up of parking. So just wanted to kind of, and then West Virginia parking. All the parking in the U.S. is about the size of West Virginia. So just wanted to highlight those points.
The more parking we have, the more we're able to drive. So the rules that manage our parking not only influence the way we move around, but also shape our urban landscapes.
And if you look at pictures of the American cities around 1920 and 1930, all of the curbs are just completely filled with parked cars. And they couldn't use prices to manage demand because the parking meter wasn't even invented until 1935.
This is Donald Shoup, an urban planning professor at University of California, Los Angeles, whose specialty is parking. As cars filled cities in the early 20th century, two inventions came to dominate parking management throughout the United States. The first was the parking meter.
The meter manufacturers popularized the parking meters. They offered them free to cities, and they kept the revenue until the meter was paid for in about 6 months, and then the city got all the revenue. They offered to install them on one side of the street only, so people could see how it worked on one side and how it worked on the other. At the same time the parking meter was invented, cities invented the idea of off-street parking requirements.
Off-street parking requirements, also known as mandatory parking minimums, are the second invention. And though you may not be aware of them, most of the parking lots you're used to exist because of these rules in the background.
Look at any place from the air, any suburban place from the air, you'll see an awful lot of land taken up for parking. And most people don't know why. It's our policy that we require our cities to be built with a lot of parking.
With suburbanization after World War II, off-street parking requirements became popular with city governments. They forced developers to include parking for their new buildings, which created a huge supply of parking at no cost to the city.
Off-street parking requirements really spread throughout the United States faster than almost any other urban planning invention. They arose partly because of the lack of management of on-street parking. If you can't manage the on-street parking properly, you need off-street parking requirements, or everybody will say, how did you let this building be built when there's not enough parking?
A typical requirement looks like this. For every 1,000 square feet of new building, there has to be a set number of parking spots, which varies by land use.
You have to have parking spaces per something. There could be a number of spaces per bassinet in a hospital, or per holes in a golf course, or per 1,000 gallons of water in a swimming pool. One of the oddest ones is for a funeral home, because that's sort of the parking spaces per what?
An average parking spot requires about 330 square feet, which includes car storage and empty space, allowing the car to move in and out and for doors to open. That means if a policy requires 3 spots per 1,000 square feet, the parking lot needs to be the size of the building, and many parking requirements need more spots. A restaurant may need 10 spots per 1,000 square feet, making the parking lot over 3 times larger than the restaurant.
Planners don't have any training in how to set them. There's really no way to say how much parking every building needs. So there's a pseudoscience that has grown up. It's like bloodletting, which was a major form of medical treatment for a couple thousand years. And they look just like parking requirements today.
Building parking is expensive, especially when it involves a large construction project.
We pay for the free parking that we demand in every role we have in life other than as a driver, as a taxpayer, as a resident, as a shopper. And just because you pay nothing at the parking lot at a grocery store doesn't mean the cost goes away. It's still there. It's just that the driver isn't paying for it.
Developers who don't comply with parking requirements pay tens of thousands of dollars in fees for every spot that they don't include. A lot of times, these costs prohibit new development.
This is some of the most valuable land on earth. Land is expensive for housing, but it's free for parking. And you wonder why we have a problem?
Parking requirements often result in more parking space than building space, pushing buildings further apart from each other, making it harder to walk and encouraging more driving. Many of the dense cities that we love, like Paris or Washington, D.C., or Amsterdam or New York, wouldn't look like this with parking requirements. These arbitrary rules continue to shape the growth of our cities and increase traffic congestion. But the excessive amount of land dedicated to parking is able to be repurposed.
We have a terrific opportunity to convert underused parking lots into housing where people want to live. The upside is that we have a lot of benefits to reap from changing our policies. Well, to boil an 800-page book down into 3 bullet points, I have 3 basic recommendations. Remove off-street parking requirements, charge the right price for on-street parking, by which I mean the lowest price the city can charge, and still have 1 or 2 open spaces on every block. So nobody can say there's a shortage of parking. In order to reach that price, you have to vary it by location and time of day. But once you've done that, and make it politically popular and spend the revenue on public services on the metered streets. Well, I'm worn out.
So just to recap on that video, some things that kind of came out, when we talk about, we need a certain amount of parking, just basically saying that it definitely has a very arbitrariness around it. It's a pseudoscience. Example being like parking space per 1,000 square feet, number of parking spaces per 1,000 square feet, or per holes of golf course, or gallons in a swimming pool. So it really does, you think that, we like the other point that he made is, we have no space for housing, no space for parks, but we have all this limitless amount of parking space, that we use. And supposedly land is extremely valuable, but not for parking. It's actually extremely it's actually valued a lot less when it comes to parking. And so this, main takeaway I would like to say, parking is just one piece of the puzzle and how we move the way we do. Next we'll talk about other individual harm that comes when we prioritize our streets for the automobile. So, so basically, pedestrian. This is a very kind of sobering graphic, but basically, a pedestrian struck at 25 miles per hour. Studies shown, that pedestrian struck at 25 miles per hour has about 25% chance of being seriously injured. So if you're driving at 25 miles per hour, you'll have a 25% chance of getting a really bad injury. But if you're going at least 33 miles per hour or more, that climbs to 50%. So really, the increase of actually speeds actually creates a greater chance that you're actually going to have a more severe injury. And other issue also too with speeds as well too. This figure illustrates how drivers concentrate less on their surroundings as speed increase, yet pedestrians are more likely to step out from the side of the road. But this shows how much more restricted the driver's field of vision is at just 30 miles per hour. So if folks are actually coming out from the sides, the field of view actually does narrow the faster you're going. So you're less likely to catch when somebody actually wants to cross the street on a small street, and especially on a big street. Question from Tim, but why do we have such big parking problems in Santa Ana though? Seems like a major residential issue. We need to figure out how to use underutilized overnight parking lots. I think what the video is saying is it's needing to be smarter. It's knowing how to price it, properly, remove off-street parking requirements. So like actually focusing around off-street parking, meaning like big parking lots that's off-street, and spending revenue on public services on metered streets. So actually using the meter to actually go into public services. At least that's the recommendation they say. But definitely it's there's a unique thing in Santa Ana that definitely can be worked on for sure. And it's questioning how we actually value parking is one of those. And so the issue with Santa Ana, having higher speeds, Santa Ana is an environment that actually is really dangerous for folks who ride or walk, ride bikes, skate, or walk in the city. So the city of Santa Ana has I think this was roughly around 2017, but really it lands always in the top 5 of cities with the highest collision rate involving a pedestrian or cyclist in the nation. Cyclist and pedestrian culture is already present, like I said, The missing link is really safe infrastructure and education. In the past 5 years, I think this is kind of referring to around from 2017 and prior, 788 bicycle-related collisions were reported in the city. 767 pedestrian-related collisions were reported in the city, and then 66 of which resulted in fatalities. The bulk of both collision types resulted in injury or complaint of pain, and 13% resulting in severe injury or death. Most collisions occurred in daylight hours or lighted conditions, with 31% occurring in either unlighted conditions or at dawn or dusk. And one thing I like to highlight as well too, the city has actually done a lot of planning around where collisions are happening. And one of the things that they have noticed, and if you see actually in this map here, collisions are happening mainly on the main streets. If you actually notice, then where the orange, there's the orange haze, is the downtown. The downtown area actually shows where that's the area actually where the highest number of collisions are happening. But if you look for the orange dots with the circle on them, those are where fatalities are happening. So while there's more collisions happening in the downtown area, why do you think that? The downtown area, it has a lot more walking, has a lot more maybe biking, and it's the denser part of the city, but they're not resulting in death. Where the deaths are happening in the city are on the major streets. That's including on Fairview, that's including on Bristol, that's including on Main Street as well. And so these bigger streets are actually where a lot of these areas are actually experiencing the actual cause of death, where death is actually, fatalities are happening where collisions are happening. But just because our streets are this way doesn't mean they have to stay this way. And there's a lot of work happening, with our group, with the city, and the city's been a really strong champion so far of trying to make their streets safer. Santa Ana active transportation culture of walking and biking, it's already present. Like I said, the missing link is infrastructure and education and encouragement. Half of the city's population don't own a car. Santa Ana also has a higher active transportation culture than the rest of the county, particularly commuters. It has a rich community culture, and there's people power here with a lot of nonprofit groups and residents constantly, rising to the challenge of trying to better their city and making it healthier. And, the reasons why or how people can or cannot walk or bike in their community are really complicated and compounded by, multiple factors, or actually traveling safely. When it comes to improving safety, we must tackle the complicated, issues of structural barriers. Too often discussions on walkability happen without the knowledge of historical context and cultural awareness. This can unfortunately result in a lack of understanding of systemic and social inequities of neighborhood walkability, particularly folks who are low income and communities of color and immigrant communities. Walking and biking environment, the environment dictates, a lot of times how safe an environment is as well. And how pedestrians and bicyclists use the road is that behavior component as well. The behaviors also are a factor in how safe places are. And then finally, driver behaviors, how drivers share the public space with pedestrians and bicyclists, lead to safer environments. And so, as we're talking about change is happening. So one of the projects that's actually in the pipeline that the city is proposed in some of its plans is on First Street. So as you can see, maybe in this image, there's a man in the center median who's actually trying to cross the street. Some people would say that's jaywalking. In my mind, it would be actually somebody trying to cross from point to point. And we'll show an actual image of what the challenge are if actually trying to cross the street when you have something like this median. If you've actually ever walked the street, there is a lot of people crossing on First Street, even over these medians. So where I was actually showing that image was actually on Shelton. And so really, if somebody actually wanted to cross on that street, they would either have to walk to Bristol or Flower to actually cross at a crosswalk. So you would actually have to walk around, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, depending on where you were, to actually 1 to 2 blocks to actually walk to a crosswalk. And that's a lot of time, and it's a real big inconvenience for people who are already, walking. And you have to basically accommodate yourself for the folks who are driving. But like I said, this is actually a possibility of what First Street could actually look like instead. This was a part of the city's active transportation plan, of what First Street could be. So basically it would be, today it exists as a road that has 3 lanes of traffic on both sides. The future could actually look like 2 lanes of traffic on both sides and a crosswalk that actually allows people to cut across on Shelton. The other considerations you also see too is a bike lane and a protected bike lane at that. You have a crossing point where you can actually cross with bikes on one side and then pedestrians on the other side. And also you have more visible striping that you actually can see on the street. The median is also open, so you can actually wait in that area if you actually need to wait before you fully cross the traffic. And yeah, it's because the current median is not broken up on the smaller side of the streets. That's why the crosswalk is being proposed there. Another example, Rate McFadden. Anybody's driven on that street? It's a stark change. You have crosswalks that are not so clear. It's only yellow paint. You have more lanes for general purpose lanes. But this is actually what it could also look like in the future, and is being worked on to look like in the future. You have a protected bike lane. You have actually clear crosswalks as well too. You actually have, in comparison to what's currently existing, where the curb ramp, where you actually cross the street, that little dip in the intersection, spits you out into the street. But this one actually direct you where you need to go, in the direction you need to go, and it doesn't actually spill you in the middle of the intersection. Again, protected bike lane as well. And this is Fairview and Edinger. This is another example of a street where it's very car oriented. It's one of the more dangerous streets as well for folks who walk and bike. But this is also what it could be, where you actually have a protected bike lane, where you have a bike lane where traffic is going both ways on one side of the street. You also have clearer crosswalks as well too. So you have more to actually make folks who are walking or biking actually more visible. Again, Sandra McFadden, another example. This one's, I think, very ambitious, but it has a lot of things going on. It has points at intersections that are shorter to cross, which are great for seniors who are trying to cross on this street. You have pedestrians or even youth having a shorter distance to cross from one point of the intersection to the other. You have bike lanes that are clearly marked, and you actually have a lot less traffic lanes. And what that does, by having less traffic lanes, it'll actually slow down traffic to actually make the intersections and the roadways actually safer. And so I'm going to share a couple things. You're going to see a few images of stuff that's already happening in the city, but stuff that we can actually hopefully implement in our community as well to make the city safer. So one of them could be a protected bike lane. So as you saw in the previous images, this is one example that's actually on Bristol already. It has a protective barrier of concrete. Sometimes it can also be planters and bollards, like plastic bollards, that will separate the bike lane from vehicle from the vehicle and the bicyclist. Sometimes you can also use parking on the outside to also create that buffer from the bicyclist and oncoming vehicles. Curb extensions extend the sidewalk into the street, which shortens the distance and time it takes to walk from the street. It can also improve visibility between pedestrians and bicyclists and motorists. They can be installed at intersections or mid-block at a lower cost by using paint, bollards, or planters. We have traffic circles or glorietas. We have a little video that we actually made. And I will say, we always hear that folks are not a fan of this, of this kind of infrastructure. So we totally hear you on that. But what I've always been told is the point is not that it's supposed to be comfortable. It's supposed to actually capture attention. That's exactly what it does. So we're gonna play this little video real quick. And so real quick question, the bollards, so they can actually be permanent, but basically you just have to replace them if they get any kind of damage. But the intention could be for you to install maybe some concrete ones. But I would say, that's the kind of creative thing. You can actually do these things today, like bollards, put them out now, and they can at least provide a short-term benefit that, instead of waiting for the concrete. So a lot of these things have happened already in the city. So they can sometimes remain small on the, plastic bollards, or sometimes they can even get bigger. And like something like this, that's concrete. So, so a couple of other kind of things that we could do to actually enhance the culture of community includes like walking school buses. Walking school bus is a group of children walking to school with one or more adults. Really, if that's helpful, it is. That's the beauty of walking school bus. Right now during COVID, I know it's a little bit more difficult, but this is something that definitely we can look forward to. Hopefully when the pandemic is a little bit eased up and schools are more open, but this is another example.
Today we are here celebrating the National Walking School Bus Day. So this is an event that takes place annually to help our kids to understand that it's very important that they exercise every day, and one of the best ways to do that is to walk. If they can, it's wonderful to walk to school, for parents to walk to school with our kids. We know that's not always possible because of maybe some traffic or safety issues, but if you can't walk to school, just make sure you're walking with your children and that you're getting daily 60 minutes of exercise. Students will be wearing costumes. They'll be representing our 5 a day, which is our 3 vegetables and 2 fruits that we all should be having every day, including parents and staff members. And then we'll have walking school buses. So they will represent a walking school bus. So you'll see some of the kids holding a school bus sign, and it even has a window where they can put their heads through. So they're going to be emulating a school bus.
Walking school buses, it ignites and encourages children to get out, to exercise, and it also brings the family and the staff together, school personnel together, to be able to help reiterate the importance of exercise, the importance of health.
And if anybody wants more information on how to actually bring a walking school bus, actually the Orange County Healthcare Agency has a great program that actually works with a lot of schools around the county and in Santa Ana, and have done stuff like walking school buses. So if you want information, we can definitely share with that with you later. There's stuff like Earn a Bike programs that are actually here in Santa Ana that you can actually encourage your other residents to actually be a part of. The Bicycle Tree on 17th Street has a Earn a Bike program, or a wrench and ride, where you actually learn how to fix your bike. You learn about rules of the road and how to actually ride on the street, and then you actually fix the bike yourself and you keep the bike yourself. And we can of course share more information about that and when those programs become open. You can do community walks and bike rides. Community walks and bike rides really encourage residents to walk and bike together. They can explore local themes such as art, music, history, and architecture. We actually usually host summer rides, but let me see if this is actually, oh yeah, this is an example of some of the bike rides we've held in the past. And because of COVID, actually, we'll share it in the chat later. We even actually created a do-it-yourself bike ride that you can actually go listen to an audio tour in the downtown area of art and historical sites in Santa Ana. How do these rides take a whole lane and still be safe? Because when you're in a bigger group, you actually are more visible, and also you have, as a cyclist, you actually have a right to actually take the lane. So it's actually ends up being very easy and very comfortable. So we definitely encourage folks to come on our rides and actually experience that yourselves as well. bicyclists are required to wear a helmet if you are 17 and under, Jasmine. If you're over 18, if you're 18 and over, you don't have to wear a helmet. You can also participate in bike classes in your community. Bike classes like the ones we have some information we'll share later. BC Basics actually teach how to fix a bike, how to ride on the street, teach you actually how to handle yourself with vehicles behind you. All the rules of the road. Actually, there's a lot of kind of responsibilities you have as a cyclist, and we actually end up teaching these in our bike classes as well. And that can also help to change the culture as well in your community. You know, having things like a street vendor in your community, you know, like your paletero, your esquita person. You know, street vending provide on-street interactions to goods when the environment doesn't give access to such amenities. They are eyes on the street. You know, those are very pedestrian-friendly kind of activities that actually help to make it more feel like you can actually, you know, travel. And then finally, having like an open street event. Sundays on Main Open Street was one of those kind of events where they closed off Main. I think it was from Warner to just about 4th Street, 5th Street, actually. And so this was actually some photos of that event that actually happened. And this is just a real quick video of what this kind of looks like. This is actually
I'm incredibly excited that we are again host here in the Northeast San Fernando Valley to another fantastic Ciclavia.
People from all walks of life come to enjoy the beauty of our districts, but also we get to enjoy it with our families.
I love Ciclavia. I traveled all the way from Gardena, California to participate in this event. Well, I think they should keep a lot of these events because a lot of times people are scared to come out because of the cars. This is a great opportunity to come out and enjoy this type of event.
It's a great place to come, bring your family, have fun.
And it's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of fun, a lot of weird stuff to look at, a lot of good stuff to eat, a lot of.
You can also encourage to try to see if you can do some helmet and light giveaways. We actually have a program called Luces Vivas where we set up at intersections and give out, distribute bike helmets, bike lights to folks that are at intersections. And we also make it very clear that these intersections actually have a lot of collisions for folks passing by and with our volunteers. So we want to basically try to share these signs like slow down as well too, mostly just because it's like we want to encourage people to be aware that these intersections actually have high rates of collision in the city, but also to share that information as well too with pedestrians and bicyclists that are passing by. You can also advocate for your street, your streets as well too. You know, quality of life inequities, you know, exist in low-income, rural, and communities of color. You know, and so they're sometimes just because we're doing infrastructure and encouragement, you also sometimes need to actually advocate at your local level as well. And one way, at least we do this at SAS, is, you know, we try to center community voices in the decision-making process and give residents the opportunity to identify and prioritize safety challenges and opportunities in their community. Their experiences are used as expert testimony to inform safety plans, projects, and programs. I think, Janelle, you were involved, I think, in a few of those planning processes as well. So definitely shout out to you for coming out to those things. You know, city and county agencies can work with community residents to translate their concerns into ideas, plans, drawings, and policy recommendations. For example, Latino Health Access led the outreach for the Santa Ana Active Transportation Plan. And now, you know, it's the plan the city uses to guide a lot of projects. So, you know, then you can also try to galvanize support through doing kind of like activating communities, you know, so doing stuff like bike rides, doing things like the Luces Vivas. In that way, you're able to actually almost kind of start garnering support for a lot of the action that you actually want to kind of accomplish. So first takeaways, some key takeaways for so far for the presentation portion. Real quick, have Santa Ana streets always been the way they are? I think that's an easy one. No, it has not been. The amount of parking we have in the United States is the size of what? Virginia, somebody says. Actually, West Virginia. Yep. Hitting someone with a car going 40 miles per hour is the same as what? Four-story drop. Ouch. Yep. What are some examples of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure we can build in our city to make it safe to walk and bike? So what are some examples of actual infrastructure we can build? Share roads, protected bike lanes, signage. Curb extensions, traffic circles. And what are some ways we can change bicycle and pedestrian culture? We mentioned a lot of different activities, but yeah, what are some activities we can do to actually change the culture? Go on bike rides, make you very visible in the community. Anybody seen the SoCal Clunkers? Shout out to them. Being very visible on streets these days on bike rides. Hosting a walking school bus, supporting street vendors, take a bike class, host an open street event, participate in an Earn a Bike program. And this is actually a trick question. Is it against the law to ride a skateboard on the sidewalk and street in Santa Ana? So is it actually illegal or legal to ride a skateboard on the sidewalk and street in Santa Ana? So it's actually against the law to both ride on the sidewalk and ride on the street. So this is actually an issue that we've actually been advocating around, and this is why it's actually important to actually advocate around. And we definitely want to make sure that skateboarders can also commute. Those are essential commuters as well too. So that's a trick question, but definitely something that we're also working on as well to hopefully make it so that skateboarders can actually ride legally on streets. So we have a little quick minute break. So bikes on sidewalks, you can actually ride on the sidewalk throughout the whole city. You cannot ride in business districts, and that includes the downtown area. So basically anywhere that has a large group of people, you can't ride on the sidewalk. So if you see in the downtown, they actually have signs that say no riding, but you can ride on the sidewalks throughout. But what we always say, if you're riding on the sidewalk, make sure to ride at more of a pedestrian pace because there's a lot of blind spots. And once again, if you take one of our bike classes, we can definitely go through a lot of kind of those details of why riding on the sidewalk, you got to be extra careful. So we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. As we see. Oh, okay. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. So we'll come back at 5:06. What we're going to ask of y'all to do is if you can gather a couple things for the next hour. We're going to ask everybody to collect a piece of paper, pencil, crayons, markers, highlighters, any random piece of items you can gather, hair curlers, toys, keys, telephone, blocks. Literally, be as creative as possible as you want. And come back with an open mind and imagination for this next activity we're going to be doing. Because we're going to be making something that hopefully looks a little bit like this. So come back at 5:06, and yeah, I'm going to leave up the list up here. So please take your time, and we'll see you back shortly. (5:07). Okay, everybody, kind of start coming back into the conversation. Thanks for participating with that first half. Now we kind of jump into our second half. This portion is going to be actually an interactive portion. So if anybody wants to anybody actually wants to take off on the audio, you're more than welcome to, or turn on your audio. So we're going to basically do a kind of a group activity. So hopefully you got your pen and paper. Anybody don't have pen and paper, just let us know. And how this activity is going to work is we're going to actually build our street or a street that we would like to see. So let's see. So first is we're going to basically actually try to let's see. Give me a sec. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of first start off with a question. What would make you walk, roll, bike, skate in Santa Ana? And additionally, what would your street or a street you travel on make you walk, roll on it? So basically what we're going to ask is that you focus on a street that you're familiar with. It doesn't have to be too big. It can be one that is near you or the one you live on. And ask yourself the question, what would your street or street you travel on make you walk or roll on it? And so we would like for folks to draw this image, or you can build it, or you can do both. So we're going to take 10 minutes, and then we're going to ask that you take a picture of your model and then send it. And you can actually send it to one of these 3 locations. And actually, let's see. So I'm going to put on some music, and we'll see how this goes. So yeah, so I'm going to put on some music and go ahead. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know.
I thought that we were doing it again. It's so peculiar, this game. composer ces mots, désobéir à tes désirs et t'adapter au tempo. Tu comprends pas tout, tout est trop flou, comme si t'avais bu la tasse, noyé comme tous ces idiots. Les filles, elles respirent sous l'eau, elles sont bien pires que dans Shakespeare, elles ont des dents sous la peau. Joue les martyrs, cache un sourire, un revolver dans le dos. Le grand méchant loup, elles sont partout, tu sens monter la menace. Tu dis ça, t'es pas macho, mais c'est pas des gens comme il faut. T'as peur des filles, assis seulement c'est des dégâts. Peur des filles, elles préparent un sale coup, ça se voit. Peur des filles, elles sont bien pires que ce qu'on croit. Peur des filles, t'as peur des filles, elles se transforment une fois par mois. Peur des filles, elles ont pas la même chose en bas. Peur des filles, ça pourrait faire des dégâts. Peur des filles. Ça va pas leur suffire de les séduire, leur offrir des coquelicots. Elles vont venir pour te punir, tu sais bien qu'elles veulent ta peau. Pour toi ni mot doux, ni rendez-vous, mais un coup de genou bien en place. Tu imagines le fiasco, si en plus elles sont costauds. T'as peur des filles, assis seulement c'est des dégâts. Peur des filles, elles préparent un sale coup, ça se voit. Peur des filles, elles sont bien pires que ce qu'on croit. Peur des filles, t'as peur des filles, elles se transforment une fois par mois. Peur des filles, elles ont pas la même chose en bas. Peur des filles, ça pourrait faire des dégâts. Peur des filles. you back. And I just wanna love 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 you And I just wanna love you back. And I just wanna love you back. And I just wanna love you back. And I just wanna love you back.
Okay, everyone. So please start wrapping up and take a photo of your image and send it to us either by, oh, sorry, I'm with my dog right now. You're gonna get a little sneak peek at my puppers. But basically, send us the image at dorian@sasscoalition.org or text at the number provided, or on Instagram. You can also send us a DM as well too there. So we'll take 5 minutes. So 5:25, we'll start sharing out. So thank you. Yeah, I saw that, Evan. Thank you so much.
Moment pass me by. Oh, I've been trying. I've been trying, girl. Oh, I've been trying. Over and over for you.
Can I call you Rose? Cause you're sweet like a flower in bloom. Can I call you Rose? Can I call you Rose? Cause your fragrance takes over the room. Can I call you darling? I wanna plant you in my heart. Oh, so let it grow. Can I call you Rose? Cause your thorns won't let love in too soon. Can I call you Rose? Can I call you Rose? Cause your roots have the power to consume me. I wanna plant you in my heart.
Oh, Apollo. So I think, yeah, we're coming back now. Thanks everybody for participating. Still uploading the images as well too. So thanks also for the context as well that you shared. First image we have up is Dorian. Dorian, if you want to, if you don't mind, could you turn off, can you, I guess, turn on your audio and maybe share a little bit about what you created for us?
Yeah. So hello, everybody. My first thought was wider sidewalks that are smooth, and definitely more parks, more greenery. You can see those are my attempts at creating trees, but also flowers would be nice. So giving more space to food vendors, pedestrians, cyclists, and less space for cars. That way people are encouraged to not use cars. So in my image, the car lane is only 2 lanes. So they're both going different directions. Where I live, the cars zoom by and it's not a large street. It's Broadway. So definitely having slowing down signs that say to slow down, or to be cautious. You know, I feel like my street needs a lot more signs because people definitely zoom by. So that's my image. Chris, you're muted.
Hold on. Okay, next up we got, sorry about that, folks. You're gonna hear a little bit of dog barking in the background. This is, I think, Tim's. Tim, would you be up for sharing a little bit? Let's see. I also, I think, have some text.
There you go. All right.
Go for it.
All right. So my picture, first of all, I'm an accountant, so I'm not an artist. So apologies if my cars are going the wrong way. So I commute on Flower quite often, and so the now is, you know, we got myself riding my bike, and as Janelle had said, hey, what do the cars do behind you? And so they have a car, honking at me and me going, here we go again. So, and a big center turn lane that no one is on, that's not being used. And so I think it'd be great if we could have some protected bike lanes, squeeze down the auto lanes a bit. I don't even necessarily think on the area that I'm talking about, you'd have to remove the center turn lane, but it sure would make it a lot easier. Or do a, oh, and then of course, everyone's happy in that picture because the automobile is not having to honk at me. And they're thinking, hey, wow, this is nice. Maybe I should ride my bike tomorrow. Or do a two-way protected bike lane in the bottom there. Kind of my wants are, safety is the key for me, and also ease of use, as well as I think Dorian mentioned nice smooth pavement. I feel like a lot of our from riding a bike, we think it's hard. I hear from drivers that our pavement's bad. Well, magnify that by 10 when you're on a bicycle, or probably way even worse if you're rolling on a skateboard. And so smooth pavement, without big huge cracks and ups and downs and tree roots that are pushing up stuff, would be great.
Awesome, very cool. Thank you, Tim. Thank you for sharing. Okay, next we got a couple from, I think this is Jasmine. I'm just gonna skip ahead and share this one because I kind of liked it. That was awesome. But Jasmine, can you share a little bit about yours? Which street are we looking at, and what what would make it better to walk or ride on?
I didn't have a particular street in mind, and so the bike path that I picked was just like a random one that I would like. Most bike lanes are kind of straight, and I just think it would be more fun if it was like curvy a little bit, and with greenery around it. So I had some of my houseplants and I put it around it. But I didn't really think about cars. Mine was just more about bike riding. So this might be better for like a bike trail.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you for that. And then finally we got Abel. What are we looking at here? Looking at Bristol, I see.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is North Bristol. This is a street that goes by like Sac, and I'm a Sac College student, so I use my skateboard a lot to like get over there. And on the Sac sort of side of the street, I feel really uncomfortable skating since the sidewalks are very like small and cracked. And like Dorian, I'd like maybe a bit more trees or bushes there to like, so that the divide between the street and the sidewalk is a bit more, I don't know, practical for me, I guess.
Awesome. Got one that came in by text right now. So let that load up right now, but I'll share mine. Oh, actually, if who did this one? This one's nice. This looks like Warner Street and Orange Street.
That's me, Celica.
Hi, Celica. Thank you for joining. Can you share a little bit about what you did?
Okay, so we have Walnut Street. I wanted to see if we can have like a center divider, but with flowers and a tree in the middle. And then I'm thinking of putting like a curve right at the corner of each street and put flowers and a bench and fit a lot less cars on the side. And those they have bike lanes too, but to do it the whole street from Walnut all the way down to Warner. That's my idea.
Very cool. Okay, so now got mine. How do we see? Literally grabbed anything I could at the time. So this is Bristol. got a lot of crazy things going on here, but this is, I think, generally on Bristol. So wanted a library on Bristol, maybe some apartments, affordable housing apartments. A zoo would be really cool, having more animals, because, just having a place, destinations, or even a park with the big tree in the middle and all the little kibble that you see around is like a lot of the drought tolerant plants, hopefully. And making Bristol, you can't really see it because it's 2 lanes, that taking it back to the 1950s. But I think really wanting a bus only lane. A lot of folks use buses on that street, but basically wanting to make sure, like, we're getting much faster bus routes on Bristol. So that's mine. But yeah, definitely on Bristol, just having a lot more kind of just activity, a lot more dynamic kind of activity that's really engaging, like libraries, zoos, and maybe some park space as well. So thanks everybody for sharing. I took a little bit of notes on this. So removing a center turn lane. I think that was on, I think you said that, Tim. That was on which street were you on, Tim? Which one did you create?
Yeah, so that's on Flower.
Okay. 2-way protected bike lane, having bike lanes that are curvy, greenery. I want to say that's a wild idea, Jasmine, but I also think that's an interesting idea. It sounds like so fun. And greenery sounds just like something that you can kind of just honestly have. That can happen tomorrow. So smooth pavement sounded like a very common theme. Abel, I jotted down a skateboard path, but because I kind of didn't catch all your thoughts. Sorry about that. So Abel, could you actually remind me about what it was? You wanted, like, I saw some skateboarders.
Yeah, well, like Dorian said, greenery, some trees there, smoother pavement.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And wild idea, less cars. I only say it's a wild idea only because a lot of people drive still, but it would be a kind of cool thing to see, is less cars. But thank you so much for participating and sharing your photos. These are really, really cool. I really appreciated all those images. So now I think we're actually going to be able to wrap up a little early, but just wanted to kind of share a couple things with everybody. So we have a couple upcoming events that we're going to be hosting. So we have a bike safety class happening on March 5th, the 12th, and the 12th, so next week in English. We still have a few more slots for that class. And it's actually a 2-part class where you can actually ride on a bike and in person. Those on-bike in-person portions are going to be very small groups, no more than 5 people. So because we're trying to take as much COVID precautions, and we will be outdoors during that on-bike portion. So those are going to be available the next day on March 6th and 13th, and also on March 27th will be the on-bike portion. So it'll be Friday and Saturday dates. So if you want to find out more information, you can scan that QR code. If you get your camera out, you can scan it. We will also drop the URL link in the notes in the chat. Abel, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like a year or 2 ago, but there were like these electronic bikes that were like around the city that you could like pay for and use.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering what happened to that program.
Yes, so there was a lawsuit that happened that ended up being around ADA compliance. That's the American Disabilities Act. And so basically there were a lot of these scooters were being placed, being left on the sidewalk. And so it was causing some obstruction for folks who moved and had an impairment. And so there's a lawsuit, a lot of cities were sued. And so I think the city pulled out of the program because they didn't want to continue with that litigation. So there's litigation that's happening, and just we would like that kind of program to come back, because we know that a lot of folks use it, especially when the buses weren't running after hours. So definitely it's a great idea, I think. But yeah, they're definitely so it's something though that could be potentially advocated for in the future. Another event that we have coming up is a data workshop where we're going to be teaching folks how to use publicly accessible data to actually look and see where crashes and collisions are happening in your city. Sometimes that will be through things like walk audits, where you actually go out into the community and count how many people are actually using those corridors. And that data is actually extremely important in telling the city, like, hey, look, there's actually data behind, that these kind of projects are needed. So actually, to your question about Tim, what is the best way to encourage, advocate for bike lanes and improvements? It varies a lot. Sometimes it's participating in planning activities. Sometimes it's gathering data and anecdotal stories so we can actually share with city staff and also share with our council members and decision makers, so then they can know that these are kind of the concerns that folks have about their environment and their community. So at least this is one way to go about it, is using data. So we have this activity also available if folks want to participate in that. Definitely happy to go talk more offline as well too. Definitely always have a lot to share about that. And actually we have the next slide is actually another way to actually get involved. So and actually learn how to get more active. So we have a programs meeting, basically a group of volunteers that meet every other week, where we talk about different kind of work that we're trying to do, like whether it's advocating with OCTA. OCTA has a lot of influence on our streets. And so, we have discussions on how we can maybe engage better OCTA. We try to gather feedback on where there's gaps in bike infrastructure, and we do regularly talk with city staff as well too. So this is a place where we try to organize and residents and community members, so then they can also be a part of developing any kind of strategy, or even actually developing, let's say, our bike rides. Our last bike ride that we created that was very COVID responsive was created because of our volunteers. So I definitely encourage you to come out to our volunteer meeting, our programs meeting. Next one is happening March 4th, and then the next one will happen 2 weeks from that date. And if you want to get any more information, you can also send a message to Dorian at SAS Coalition, or the number that's provided. So thank you everyone for participating so much and sticking around for today. Please follow up with us on Instagram at SA Active Streets, or the website at sascoalition.org. If we have a little bit more time, so if anybody has any last minute questions, I can take a couple of things if folks have any.
I have something. We still have to do the giveaway. So the way we're going to do it is we have 4 prizes, and a few people left. So I think, to be fair, I think 2 prizes will go for the larger group of people who showed up, and then 2 will be for this small group that's still here. So I have a name generator that I'm going to do at the moment. So just a second. Chris, should I screen share or?
Yeah, you can screen share. Yeah.
Okay. So. All right. Okay, here it is. I hope you can see it. So you just put people's names and then you pick a random name. So here we go. Chauffeur. I think they left, but we'll mark it down. Okay, so now let's hope it does it again. Let's see, random name. Janelle also left. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna erase the people who aren't here. Chris, if you can help me see who left. I think Joanna left, Topher left.
Yeah, currently we have actually
Janelle. Let's see. That's everybody, right?
I think so.
All right, let's see who gets the next prize. Jasmine. And wait, oops. Okay. Celica. Good
Awesome.
job.
So yeah, the gifts are, or the giveaways are a gift card to the Bicycle Tree and a couple SAS shirts. So we will be following up with y'all about all that. So thanks everybody for showing up. Any last questions, comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is super cool.
Yeah, much appreciated, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll be in touch with everybody, and thank you all for joining. Have a good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.